Intermittent fasting. Is this a fad behavior, a fad diet, or is this the way our ancestors lived for thousands of years until convenience and technology and luxury made us eat more? So that's this week's question of the week. And I am al-Aziz, the owner and head instructor of Semper Fortis Jiu Jitsu here in San Antonio, Texas. And this is the question of the week that we're going to tackle. Intermittent fasting. I do intermittent fasting, and I share that because it's been a very healthy experience for me. And I know a number of you are trying to keep New Year's resolutions for weight loss and just healthy lifestyles. And I encourage everybody to have a healthy lifestyle and not get caught up in, what the scale says, but how you feel, and how's your health. So intermittent fasting, I do intermittent fasting. I actually stumbled into intermittent fasting, not because of weight loss or even necessarily a healthy lifestyle change. I got into it because I compete in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu quite often. And I could never find a good breakfast to eat the morning of competition that just felt good on my stomach. I went from everything from meat, waffles, oatmeal, cereals, and just nothing felt right. So what I decided to do a few years ago was that I would not eat in the morning. But I didn't want to eat every morning and then go and then train and then on competition day not eat and then compete. I wanted to feel the same way on competition day that I felt every single day of my training. So I decided to do the intermittent fasting. And what I was doing is I would stop eating at around 8 o'clock at night, and then I would not eat, and then I would train at 11:30 the next day at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and then spar, and then roughly about 2 p.m., 3 p.m., I would eat again, and then I would eat in this 5 to 6 hour window, and just that was my rotation. And what I found that the things that I thought would happen to me, like I would have less energy, was the exact opposite. I found myself having more energy. And I found my mental clarity to really be on point, which is critical, especially in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitions, because as you're going through your techniques and trying to figure out what to do next, mental clarity is a huge deal. So I found with intermittent fasting that not only was my body feeling better, but my mind was clicking even better. And it really was helping me focus. And I was sleeping even better. So those were the benefits I was getting, in addition to, a number of people talk about weight loss. And it made me think, why am I having this effect when everything I've ever been told was the exact opposite? If you don't eat in all that time and then you go compete the next day, and I'm competing against black belts in the world championships, in the Pan American championships, and regional IBJJF championships. These are really tough individuals who are really good at jiu-jitsu, and you would think that I would not be performing as well, but yet I'm taking gold in the regional championships. I'm going to the Pan Americans and the Master Worlds, making it to the podium, leaving with bronze. Haven't won gold or silver at the Master Worlds yet, but I'm working on it. And it's why is that? And that led me to research, because I don't believe in coincidence or flukes. So I started looking up things, and one is an amazing book called The Obesity Code by Dr. Jason Fung, who is an amazing individual, great book to read, and he talks about why intermittent fasting works and why everybody should be doing it. And another really nice book written by Dr. Becky Gillaspy is really easy to read, big letters, which helps for me. And I was like, hey, as my eyesight fades in my older age, I turned 55 this year, my gosh. So I appreciate the big letters, Dr. Gillaspy. Another really good book, Intermittent Fasting Diet. She talks about, her and her husband, who are both doctors, talk about intermittent fasting. But Dr. Jason Fung, amazing guy. So I recommend all three of these doctors. But they started explaining why intermittent fasting works and why it's good for us. And one is, if you look back on how our society has changed, like when I was a kid in the 70s, and you would get breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but when I got home from school, it'd be like, no, you're not going to get a snack, you'll ruin your dinner. There was no snacks in between. There was just breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you wouldn't snack. And then you ate dinner, I don't know, about 6 p.m. I think, and then you wouldn't eat anything until the next morning, and hence the name break fast. I've probably been mispronouncing that word all these years. Break fast. Like that word came from somewhere, and it's literally breaking your fast in the morning. But roughly, I had been fasting, for 12 hours. Nowadays, our society, we don't do that anymore. You'll be at a soccer game, parents will be chasing the kids at halftime, trying to give them, some kind of snacks or fruit drinks, and fruit drinks is really mislabeled. It's really fruit flavored sugar water, and trying to get them to, when the kids got the energy, they just want to go play. We're trying to give them snacks, like, get a snack. And where nowadays we seem to eat from the time we wake up to the time we go to bed. And it's causing a number of problems, most of it metabolic. And your metabolism and these things that are happening is what's causing us to gain weight and not to be at optimal health. Because our ancestors, they were not, they were hunter-gatherers for thousands of years. And they weren't waking up in the morning killing something, because mind you, there was no refrigeration back then, and then eating breakfast, and then killing something else, eating lunch, because for thousands of years they was hunter-gatherers, long before we became an agricultural society. So, and then there was no refrigeration, so if you killed something, it ain't like you could just eat it for days. No, like that. So for thousands of years, humans were hunter-gatherers. And as Dr. Fung explains, what happens is when you don't eat, your body stops burning glucose and starts burning fat, and which also turns into ketones for your brain. And you don't lose energy because your body's letting you know, like, hey, I'm going to generate more energy because you need to go hunt for food. So if you go 12 hours without food, our ancestors might be going several days, maybe even weeks without food, because you can go quite a while without food. Not without water, but without food, you can go quite a while. And that's what our ancestors were doing, and our body was generating the energy and the mental clarity to really get us to focus on the hunt. So we weren't going a day without food and then all lethargic and foggy. No, we were getting more energy because we was burning fat, because that was the idea of storing fat, is you're storing fat to use later when you don't have food. What we've evolved to is almost like in Norse mythology. We talk about it in the military, where if you die on the battlefield, the Valkyries come down, they take you to Valhalla, where you feast every day with Odin until the end of days, which they called Ragnarok. So anytime when I was in the military and we lost a member of our unit, we'd say till Valhalla, under the Norse belief that, they were going to be in Valhalla feasting. But what we've done as a society is like every day we're living like we're in Valhalla. It's like, we just have an abundance of food. We have refrigeration. It's like there's always something to eat, and there's always a commercial or some kind of advertisement like, let's eat. And a lot of times when you open up the refrigerator, it's not because you're hungry, you're just sort of bored. It's like, well, it just seems right. Yeah, let me snack on this. And so your body never gets a chance to tap into its fat stores. And it just keeps on storing fat because you keep on feeding it and it doesn't need to, so it never gets a chance to tap into its reserve stores. And then somebody will be like, well, that's starvation. And it's like, no, starvation is when you don't have the option for food. Fasting is you're making a choice. And people will think like, oh, well, like if you fast, you'll start losing muscle. No, you get muscle from physical activity. Like if you, whether you lift weights, do cardio work, move around, that builds muscle. If you end up in a coma for a couple years and then you wake up from a coma, your muscles will have atrophied and you won't be getting up to walk around, not for quite some time, because you're going to have to rebuild those muscles. I remember when I had knee surgery on my right knee in 2014, my doctor, the surgeon, he understood, that I was into Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And so I had my right knee in this brace, it was like for, 3 or 4 months. And, he's like, well, let's take the brace off and let's take a look at your knees. And I'm looking at my knee and he's looking and he's laughing at my knee because he's like, your left leg looks like the leg of an athlete. He's like, now your right leg looks like an old woman's leg. And I was like, oh, that's so funny. I should just choke you. But I might need more medical procedures. So I'll let you off this time, doc. But that's what happens. If you don't use the muscles, they atrophy. When you fast, your body's not dumb. Your body doesn't all of a sudden decide, oh, I'm not going to burn these fat stores that we've been storing for a, cold day or lean times. No, instead, I'm going to burn, the heart muscle or, your bicep muscles or, that's not how your body works. That's not how we survive all these thousands of years as a species, because our body is dumb. Our body knows like, hey, I'm storing these fat stores away for a lean day that I need to tap into them. Not, oh, I have all these fat stores to tap into. I'm going to tap into the muscles instead. Like your body's pretty sharp. It's almost like if you end up in freezing cold and your body will stop the blood supply to external body parts like your feet, your toes, your fingers, and really conserve it for your vital organs. So a lot goes wrong when you're freezing before you die. So like your body knows like, okay, let me, it's a smart, efficient system. That's how we've survived all these thousands of years. So some of the benefits I found from intermittent fasting are like better sleep, more energy, burns fat, and mental clarity. Because our ancestors, whether you descended from the Vikings or the Plains Indians, they weren't eating, constantly. They had lean times before they went in and had the opportunity to have a feast. One of the reasons intermittent fasting is not more popular is there's no money to make for anybody off of it. Like the pharmaceutical companies can't sell you any magical pill. The supplement companies, whether it's GNC or the CBD companies, they can't sell you any magic formula like, oh, take this will help you lose weight. Weight Watchers or some kind of meal replacement company can't sell you some product, to make money. The most money somebody's going to get off of this is just, well, write a book and buy my book. Otherwise, there's no money to be made off intermittent fasting, which I think is one of the reasons it's not a more popular lifestyle. And of course, the food industry is not making more money because you're consuming less food. So that's why I don't think it's very popular. I think it is our ancestral diet, and that's why I enjoy intermittent fasting, and that's why I do it, and it's not just for competition anymore. Even like when you look back on some of the writings of our ancestors, like Benjamin Franklin said, like the 2 best medicines was fasting and sleep. And man, that guy was onto something. Because sleep is critical too, and we can talk about that in another video. But there was writings of the ancient Greeks, where Socrates and Plato were talking about the benefits of fasting and the importance of fasting. So And really all major religions do some type of fasting. I know like the Muslims do like a 30-day fasting, and they're not losing all their muscle and they're not dying away. Like it's a 30-day fast where they don't eat, from sunrise to sunset during the day. So you can do this. This is very doable. It just seems like, oh man, this is gonna be hard, or there's a number of reasons why we don't do it. And then the way to do intermittent fasting is, we're not talking about like go 30 days without food. Like, no, nobody's recommending that. What I do is I go and I stop eating around, 7, 8 o'clock at night. I have dinner, and then I don't eat again until about 2 o'clock the next day. So that might be an 18-hour, fast with a 6-hour window of eating. And I do that every day. Like once a month, I like to do a 48-hour fast where I don't eat anything for 48 hours. Like I drink water, and drinking water, a lot of times when you're hungry, water will fill you up. And also realize that you get hungry during your normal eating times. But once you get used to fasting, you don't get hungry like you will initially. Like your body gets used to it. It's like, okay, no, we only eat in this window. And like even when I do the 48-hour fast, you would think like, oh, whenever I hit that hunger point, it's only going to get worse from that point until I break the fast. When what happens is you're like really hungry for an hour, and then it's like it just goes away. And then you're back to your normal feeling. So when you get really hungry during the fast, drink some water, and it passes. So you're not like in this severe state of hunger. If you have medical issues, I would definitely recommend you talk to your doctor before, taking on intermittent fasting. And, start easy. Like don't be like, well, let me do a 48-hour fast. Like that shouldn't be your first fast. Maybe start with something like stop eating at, say, 7 o'clock at night, and then don't eat again until you wake up in the morning at 7 p.m. or 7 a.m. Sorry. Give it 12 hours. You can do this because most of us have to do this once a year anyways, before we do our cholesterol test. They're like, yeah, don't eat for 12 hours. So don't eat. And when you say don't eat, it's also like don't drink anything with sugar, or, you just drink water. Most Dr. Fung says you can drink coffee, but you're not adding any sugar or any cream. It's just coffee, and that won't break your fast. And that helps. So that's what I do. Those are the reasons I do it. I'm going to include links down below in the description of Dr. Fung's Instagram page, his YouTube page. He's got a web page, and in addition to, how to come up with these books. Both of these books can be found on Amazon because I think that's how I got them. And I recommend you give it a shot. If you're looking to change your life, intermittent fasting I think can be really good for both just general health and also if you're looking to do some weight loss. All right, that's the answer for this week's question of the week. Got a question for next week? Feel free to fire below. And if you've had any experience with intermittent fasting, please make a comment below. And otherwise, like and subscribe. And if you got a question, fire away. And if you know how I can turn this camera off from here, dude, let me know. Because otherwise, I have to scoot up and turn it off because I don't have a cameraman. I'm not one of those big famous YouTubers. All right, ciao.